Hello radio enthusiasts, welcome to another video about early radio from the Roaring Twenties Antique Radio Museum. In this video we'll be showcasing a company from the 1920s that wasn't around for long, but left a lasting mark on radio history, the Colin B. Kennedy Company. The company's founder, Colin Bruce Kennedy, was a Canadian born in Teeswater, Ontario on February 6, 1895. As a young boy, Kennedy worked as a delivery boy for a drugstore in a small town. The drugstore also doubled as the town telegraph office, and it was there that Kennedy learned telegraphy. In his early teens, Kennedy left home and spent the next decade as a telegraph operator in places all over Canada. Eventually, he would end up on Vancouver Island, running 2 radio stations owned by the Canadian government. Kennedy's next stop would be a position at the Federal Telegraph Company. As soon as his employer realized how talented and knowledgeable Kennedy was, he was sent to the company's research laboratory at 913 Emerson Street, Palo Alto, California, to work on radio transmitter and receiving development. Colin Kennedy had all the personal tools needed for success. He was smart, ambitious, had a good head for business, and got along well with others. In 1919, Kennedy told his boss, Chief Engineer Dr. Leonard Fuller, that he believed the future of radio was in the home. Kennedy wanted to leave the Federal Telegraph Company and start his own company. He asked Dr. Fuller if he would be the company's financial backer, and Fuller agreed. That same year, Kennedy founded the Colin B. Kennedy Company. In the beginning, the company sold parts from other manufacturers while building their own line of products for ham operators and radio experimenters. Business boomed, and by the end of 1919, Kennedy had 65 employees. By mid-1920, Kennedy had acquired an Armstrong license to sell regenerative receivers, and in July of 1921, the company began sales of one of early radio history's most iconic receivers, the Model 110. This photo shows Colin Kennedy out testing the range of his Model 110 receiver. Note the 2-stage Magnavox amplifier and Magnavox speaker horn. Kennedy's 110 was soon followed by its companion, the Model 525 detector amplifier. By this time, Kennedy's company had moved to a larger factory, and its offices were moved to the Rialto building in San Francisco, seen here. An interesting side note concerning the Rialto building, it was the survivor of the Great San Francisco earthquake of 1906, seen here shortly after the earthquake. Though a survivor, the building was badly damaged and had to undergo extensive repairs in 1910. This is the Rialto building as it looks today. Along with his booming business, Colin Kennedy was also busy broadcasting from his radio station located in the home of his production manager, Emil Portal. The station's call sign was 6XAC and operated under an experimental license that was granted around April of 1921. Initially, Kennedy used the station to test the reception of his receivers. The broadcast proved to be so popular that on January 2nd of 1922, the station was granted a commercial license and broadcast as station KLP. Kennedy's station was short-lived and would end broadcasting in early 1923. Just down the block from Kennedy's offices in the Rialto building was the West Coast office of Wagner Electric Company, a St. Louis-based manufacturer of motors. The radio craze was in full swing, and like everybody else, Wagner's president, Herbert Wagner, wanted to get into the radio business. After finding out that Kennedy had a valuable Armstrong license, Wagner's interest in the Kennedy Company grew stronger. By the middle of 1922, Wagner acquired control of the Colin B. Kennedy Company. Advertisements appeared after the acquisition touting the opening of a new factory in St. Louis to handle demand from the eastern part of the country. What actually happened was Wagner had moved the whole company to St. Louis. Production was moved to a drafty old obsolete building there. It's estimated that Kennedy made roughly 50,000 radios between 1923 and 1926. Production peaked at 350 radios a day. However, by May of 1926, the Colin B. Kennedy Company went bankrupt. The company had fallen behind their competitors in technology, and their high-priced radios were no longer in demand. Colin Kennedy purchased his old company's assets and attempted a comeback with a new model receiver in 1927 at a factory in Highland, Illinois. Sadly, it also ended in failure. In February of 1929, Colin Kennedy met with members of the Studebaker family and persuaded them to finance a new venture making car radios. The company would once again be called the Colin B. Kennedy Company and would be a subsidiary of the Studebaker Mail Order Company. The machinery at the now closed Highland plant was moved to a 65,000 square foot plant in South Bend. When the business opened, Studebaker spent lavishly on promoting the new company. By July of 1930, the business had 250 employees building 350 radios a day. Despite the decent production numbers, the company was losing money. Somewhere around mid-1932, Kennedy left the company, and by 1933, the company was bankrupt. The company's building and machinery went to its creditors. Colin Kennedy stayed in radio sales until he joined the Signal Corps in Chicago in 1942. He died in June of that same year at the age of 47. Today, nearly a century later, radios and radio components built by the Colin B. Kennedy Company are among the most admired and sought after by antique radio collectors. Though the company's founder died before his time, and the company he created was in business only 7 years, Colin Bruce Kennedy and his company have secured a place in early radio history. That's it for this video. There will be more to come as we continue to investigate the early history of the world's first mass medium, radio. Thanks for watching.